Your host, Javier Vicuna.
And I'm your co host, Santi Hernandez.
And your host, Anna Larius.
On today's show, we will be talking about Independence Day, and we will be going over the significance of Independence Day here in America. But we will also be sharing some different perspectives on how Independence Day is looked at by many of other people here in America. So it'll be an interesting show because we're going to be sharing a lot of our perspectives on this pretty popular holiday and pretty important day for America. But before we get to the quote of the week, I would like to share a quick announcement. The Youth Leadership Institute is looking for youth aged 12 to 21 who are willing to join the Youth Commission. You must live or attend a school in Marin, must have a passion for youth issues, and all LGBTQ plus and marginalized youth are encouraged to join. So if you're interested in joining, you can contact Samantha Ramirez at sramirez@yli.org. Or you can contact them through the Marin County Youth Commission Instagram that we will link in the description of today's show. But with that, here's Santi with the quote of the week.
Well, thank you, Javier, for sharing. I am so excited to be here with both of you today. I decided to choose the quote that, since we're going to be talking about Independence Day, I wanted to share something about culture. And this is: the beauty of the world lies in the diversity of its people. So normally we say that's Latin culture, or that's, the Black community's culture, or that's the Native Americans' culture. And here in America, we are multicultural. Yeah. So we don't necessarily have America's culture. I think, to me, it's a blessing that in America we are a blend of cultures. There's such a variety, and that's the beauty of being able to live here. However, we do have some struggles because of that, and I'm really excited to be able to dig deep and talk about kind of the different cultures and perspectives that we have here. But that is my quote of the week.
I think it's wonderful, and it's going to really set us up for, how you guys are going to explain the other perspectives of people for Independence Day. So I'm really excited to talk about this. Do you guys have anything else?
Yeah, I can agree that this sets up the background of how United States in the past has started, because there must be history from behind to show what's been up right now. And I feel like just like the history that we'll be mentioning has to happen for us to end up where we are right now. So I really liked how Santi was mentioning how United States has become this multicultural country, and it's very unique from other countries that are not that multicultural.
Agreed. I agree
races.
with that.
Yeah.
So we're really excited, but before we do that, we're going to play a short PSA, and we'll be right back.
CDC is working to help keep you and your community safe from a threat of a new coronavirus. There are steps you can take now to get ready if an outbreak occurs in your community. Make a household plan, learn how to prepare, and take quick action if someone gets sick. Older adults and people with chronic medical conditions are at greater risk. Take extra steps to protect them. Think about what you will do if there are changes to your work schedule. Remember to always practice good, healthy habits such as frequently washing hands with soap and water, staying home when sick, and covering coughs and sneezes. For more information, visit cdc.gov.
All right, welcome back, everyone. So there is, COVID's still a thing. I know that mass restrictions are getting much better in terms of if you're vaccinated. But there is a Delta variant running around, so please do stay clean and safe. It's not completely over yet. So just to delve a little deep into the history behind the 4th of July, I just want to go over its history and, the significance of why is it on the 4th of July. So this started with the Revolutionary War in 1775, where few colonists were actually resisting the control of Great Britain, and many were called radicals if they opposed the control that Great Britain had on America. However, the following year in 1776, many colonists began to favor independence and began following the revolutionary sentiments that were written down on Thomas Paine's pamphlet called Common Sense. many people followed that pamphlet, and it got really popular. It's one of the best-selling pamphlets in America, and it led to Virginia delegate Richard Henry Lee to advocate for the independence of the colonies to the Continental Congress at the Pennsylvania State House. This sparked a heated debate among the Congress, which led to the appointment of a 5-man committee that was made up of Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Roger Sherman, Benjamin Franklin, and Robert Livingston. Soon after, on July 2nd, 1776, the Continental Congress voted in favor of Lee's resolution for independence in a near unanimous vote. On July 4th, the Continental Congress formally signed the Declaration of Independence, which was written by that 5-man committee that they had appointed before. So voting took place on the 2nd of July, but it didn't go into full independence till the 4th of July. So that's why the signing of the Declaration of Independence is really what happened on the 4th of July and basically made it so that America grew independent. But as we know, there were still slaves around America even after that independence was signed. So it's kind of a bittersweet moment because obviously Great Britain's no longer controlling America, but the Americans are still controlling other people and not letting them have their own rights. So there's a lot more to that, but I'm going to go ahead and pass this over to Santi, who will talk about a little more about how Americans celebrate Independence Day.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Javier, for sharing the history. Just a brief, catch up or kind of a reminder of how our 4th of July came to be. Well, first I want to say when we talk about independence, we talk about freedom. Like you said, we grew apart or we broke apart from Great Britain. However, you mentioned that there was slavery. And I think we're missing a huge part in that as well. It's a part of the picture, and it's our Native Americans. So do you all Americans celebrate Independence Day? And it's not really. No. We're a nation filled with many cultures, and not all of us celebrate this day. Native Americans do not celebrate this day because for them, this is a huge loss. If you don't know, Native Americans lost their land, their culture, and for them, the celebration that a lot of people see, for them, it's sadness. And unfortunately, in our history of America, that chapter is so important and it's so dark, and we usually don't acknowledge that part of our history. And I think it's very important to remember that the land that we are on right now, for many of us, our families immigrated to the United States, but for other family members, this was their home. This is their home. And so when the Europeans came, they colonized this area. What ended up happening was that they decolonized our Native Americans. That means you take away their language, their style, their food, and what makes them who they are. And unfortunately, I want to share a little bit. I did a lot of research, and I want to share about kind of like what that looked like and why, so people can understand and respect if a Native American doesn't celebrate this day. Because I've seen some people get frustrated, but it's our Independence Day, but they don't really know the story of why Native Americans have so much pain. And part of that is that, so when the Europeans came, they saw the Native Americans as savages, as people who were uncivilized because of their lifestyle. But it's their culture.
Obviously.
It's not that they're uncivilized. It's that's how their culture was and is.
And that was the same way that when the Spanish colonizers came to like Mexico, for example, they thought the Aztecs were like complete violent savages because the Aztecs, well, they involved a lot of like rituals, which involved killing people, but that was, again, that's part of their culture, and that's kind of how they were running things. It's not that they're savages or killers. It's just that's what they believed. And it's their culture.
So when the Europeans came, they tried so hard to make them like them. And so part of the sad history, I was going to talk about how Canada celebrates their Independence Day. So if you've watched the news recently, Canada Day Canada's Day is considered as their 4th of July. But this year, many Canadians have decided not to celebrate this day for one reason. So back in the day, there was a lot of boarding schools for Native Americans. And if you go online, you can search up the before and after pictures of these boarding schools. And it was taking Native Americans, how they were with their original clothes, with their culture. And then you see the after photo where they're civilized, where, they're wearing suits and all of that. They decolonized those kids. And unfortunately, recently, just last year, if I'm correct, they found about over 100 graves of children that were not marked as graves. And that's why people from Canada have decided not to celebrate Canada's Day, because they wanted to dedicate this Canada's Day to memorize, or not to memorize, but to give a moment for those kids, because those kids suffered separation from their families with no official good reason. So let's say if I saw this story of a woman, so let's say I was pregnant and I'm a Native American, and people come in and tell me that your kid doesn't belong in this place, and they were already putting my baby for adoption without him being born. That's what Native Americans end up having. And a lot of Native Americans' kids grew up with white people because they were taken away from their homes.
Right.
And with that, here's the interesting part, that because they did that, they took so many kids into those boarding schools, it allowed America to take advantage of them being disconnected from their culture, so disconnected from their land. And that's how a lot of their land was taken away from them, because children, or the new generation, wasn't connected to the land.
To the land. Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's really messed up.
It's so
super messed up.
hard for a lot of Native Americans. And I was tearing up last night because, as you all know, and I know Javier just recently found out some news too, that I have indigenous background, and if you take away my native language, if you take away my culture, I look at myself and I'm like, well, then what am I? Because that's a huge part of who I am. It has shaped me. It has formed me. So to those Native Americans, I am with you, and it definitely has changed my perspective on 4th of July, because as a whole nation, we do need to acknowledge our history, and not just the good parts, but also those really hard,
really bad parts that just sweep
parts
under the rug.
Yeah.
And not really talk about.
Yeah. So anyways, that is my take on why not most Americans celebrate Independence Day. But I'm going to give it off to Annalie, who's going to be talking more about the different cultures and their perspectives on this day.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned about the disconnection and how European people did take away the land. And I remember the Trial of Tears, which was a very hard journey.
I remember that.
For Native Americans as well. So it really is really sad knowing this part of history because of actions that ended up with the Independence Day. But going along with Santi, I wanted to talk about the perspective of Black people with Independence Day and if they celebrate Independence Day, because as I remember, we did have a show last week about Juneteenth, and we have previously mentioned that Independence Day was a day of freedom, but for slaves, they were still not free. They were still working, and for people, Black people, I think most of them don't celebrate Independence Day. And Independence Day, at that time, Independence Day gave more power to Americans who were white male minority to be exact. And they had more freedom, and they weren't restricted from King George III. And so that's what happened at the time, but I wanted to give a different perspective, which is that independence is still an important mark for Americans and future Americans. And when I say future Americans, I mean Americans that are coming here and being raised here. Like, for example, I'm Guatemalan American. My family is from Guatemala, but I was raised and born here, and I consider myself American. And it is another identity that I was grew up with. Like, I know you mentioned that you have a different identity. I mean, part of your identity is being a Native American, and I feel like we have we have identity crisis here in the United States. I mean, for like people who have different backgrounds, they have suffered a lot about that too. But going back to what I was saying, based on what is Independence Day, it's considered like the moral foundation of Independence Day is about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so I was looking up what has some Black people has said about Independence Day, and I saw a quote. I saw the speech of Martin Luther King, whose speech was "I have a dream," and I'm gonna read out what he said about the Declaration of Independence. He says, "When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall here. This note was a promise that all men, yes, Black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness." And so that quote really showed how there should be freedom for everyone, freedom for all Americans. And as you can see, we still don't have that freedom for all of the people that we have seen, especially the minority races, because they still suffer from discrimination, and they are still they're being controlled basically from authority, like the polices we have seen with Black people with police brutality. And I just wanted to say that Independence Day may have different perspectives, and later on I'll say like more of what I feel, but it's not just about like fireworks and celebrations. More about freedom for everyone and keeping that promise that these people have been saying, wrote down the Declaration of Independence for everyone, all Americans, to have that freedom. So
so I think that's a great perspective, and thank you for sharing that information with us about how Black Americans look at Independence Day, and it's again making that connection with Juneteenth, last week's show, how that's basically not even looked at too much as. It depends on who you ask. If a Black person sees that as the Independence Day or not.
Yeah, and Juneteenth, I don't think like Black people would think Juneteenth is Independence Day because they are yet still facing racism. So they're not.
So it's getting... not. It's and there's racism everywhere still. So I'll take. Yeah, so that'll transition us to kind of just express our feelings, like personally, how we feel about Independence Day in America. So go ahead, Santi.
Yeah, I love the way you brought Martin Luther King to the table, because there is one part of his speech where he says, "I dream that my kids would be playing something around," and it just kind of reminds me of kids playing around with different cultures, and it's okay. Just brought me that picture. So as a child, I didn't grow up in the United States. Well, I wasn't born in the United States, but I grew up here. And they always at school, they told you the 4th of July. They taught us the surface of why we celebrate the Independence Day, right?
So kind of like what the history I just gave you.
Yeah.
They just say that.
But as I've grown up and I took AP U.S. history, my teacher, he brought up Native Americans and brought up so many deep conversations that it opened my eyes, and it made me realize that, well, personally, I wasn't born here. I'm born in Guatemala, and yet again, I don't celebrate their Independence Day. Just something that in our culture with my family we don't do. But I really don't I really don't celebrate that, but I would love from here on out to take Independence Day as a way to advocate for unity for all cultures. That would be my goal. And aside from that, I want to share a quote that I really like and that kind of represents my independence. And it says, "Without moral and intellectual independence, there is no anchor for national independence." So that basically means independence starts here. Right? So your independence has to start within yourself for you to be able to let others have independence as well. So independence, I think there's two differences, and my dad showed it to me this way. There's the, where national independence, where, where you fit in with others. Right. And there's your own independence, where you feel independent from other people. Where you're okay with your own skin. And I think that's what I really want to start advocating for and start talking more about with our youth, is that I personally don't care if you are a Native American, Black, white, girl or boy, that I want to be able to treat you with respect, because that's the love that I have gotten from my spiritual belief, God, and I want to be able to give that without disrespecting what you believe. And it's valid if you don't celebrate Juneteenth or 4th of July. It's valid as long as you are willing to respect yourself and others. Yeah. So that's my perspective on independence.
That's a great perspective, and I love that quote because, like you said, I'm the same way. Independence Day in America has always been, it hasn't been celebrated by my family and I. We just don't celebrate it, and similar to you, we're Mexican, and we don't celebrate Mexican Independence Day. We just don't. I mean, it's not that we'd have anything against it or anything. It's just that we don't celebrate it. We don't just find it important or anything. Or we find it important, but we just don't think it's necessary to celebrate. And also, a large part of what's weird with 4th of July with me is that I was born on the 3rd of July, so my birthday is actually tomorrow. But, having my birthday the same, like the day before the big 4th of July, I've always just seen it as annoying because, if I'm trying to get a party ready, well, everyone's at the store because they're all preparing for the 4th of July parties. And, usually I would go to the Marin County Fair a lot too as a kid to celebrate my birthday there just because it made sense. I mean, it's a fun place to be at and a pretty good place to go watch the fireworks. And that's all I really cared about 4th of July were the fireworks.
They painted as a huge part of 4th of July.
Exactly. And that's as a kid, that's like what made 4th of July, like, I guess, stand out a little bit. It was the fireworks and, of course, the fair, because the Marin County Fair is it's a pretty big thing here. And again, they're not doing it this year. But like I said, just being born before the 4th of July is just... It's just something I have to live with it. I mean, it's when I was born. And it's just, I've never really celebrated 4th of July because of America's independence. I've celebrated more as a continuation of my own birthday. So that's a pretty selfish perspective, but it's the truth. I'm being honest. I'm glad that America's independent, but also, like you guys have been mentioning, there's still so much work that has to be done in America. There's still a lot of racism and discrimination, especially on African Americans here in America, and even us minorities, like us Latino people, we face racism and discrimination all the time. So,
for sure.
Until all of that is basically gone, or people understand that that's still not okay, then we're not independent. I feel still, except I like that perspective that you said, that kind of using yourself as independent, like you yourself are independent, right? Mm-hmm. And not kind of taking a holiday or when the place you were born is independent. As long as you feel independent yourself and you feel that you can do things without being restricted, then you're fine.
Yeah, I think the ability to love yourself for who you are is that independence that I'm talking and rooting for.
But unfortunately, there's still a lot of people here in America who can't really feel independent because they're being restricted by other people who are keeping them from that independence.
Yeah.
Which is really sad.
Yeah, and I would say that going back to like the history, we have said that United States is composed of people with different ethnic backgrounds
Right.
that work and live together.
Mm-hmm.
And our government has developed into 3 strong branches that work and should work for the people. And I believe that we should work as like a community to make things work and also have accountability for those working in the government because, like you said, there is still a lot
of work that needs to be done.
Yeah, that needs to be done so everyone could have that liberty and that what the Declaration of Independence basically says for all Americans, and that includes all races because we are like formed by a multicultural country. And with my perspective, I do celebrate 4th of July. But like just like I just enjoy the fireworks and stuff like that.
I think that's
but I don't go eating dinner or stuff like that because I just like enjoy, like when I was little I would enjoy going to the parades because they would give out candy. They would throw out candy. And yeah, I would go to the fair and watch the fireworks, but I just enjoy watching the fireworks because I like seeing like the bright lights and stuff like that. But yeah, I just wanted to say my perspective. And like I just said previously, I see the Declaration of Independence as a goal for us to meet because I feel like it's not has been met because our goal is to make everyone, like all races,
be independent.
Yeah.
But
well,
okay, go
have
ahead.
freedom.
Have freedom, exactly.
Have freedom, and
because with
happy.
Freedom comes independence.
Yeah,
right?
And
vice versa.
And the goal is for everyone to be happy, but people who are being discriminated are not being happy because they're living with obstacles that should not be like happening in the first place.
I agree with that. And just to say, on Facebook, we have Johnny saying hi. Hello. Thank you for watching. And I just want to touch back with what you guys were mentioning about how, it's hard for so many people with different cultures to do certain things. And that's where I want to end my part and say it doesn't matter. No, people will tell you can't do some things because of your color, your culture, your culture, that's bad, or this and that. They're going to say that no matter what. I guess it's going to continue in our history, but let's work as a community to prevent from that happening. But to those who have those obstacles, I want to tell you guys, please don't give up. You are filled with so many amazing, talented things, and the things that you want to do and accomplish actually will make a difference, not only to benefit you, but to benefit the people you love the most. So keep doing what you're doing. And if people tell you can't, reminder that yes, you can. It's your culture and who you are. It should be your biggest strength to push harder and harder. So that's on my part. And happy Independence Day to yourself, right?
And
to yourself.
Don't feel afraid to not celebrate this holiday. Don't feel pressure to celebrate this holiday. If you feel that America isn't doing their job, which they aren't, then you're more than free to not celebrate Independence Day. And I understand people's frustration with this holiday, especially with how things are continuing to be done here in this country. So there's nothing wrong with that. Your opinion should always be respected, no matter what.
Agreed.
And if people don't want to respect your opinion, or if they, rag on you for not wanting to celebrate Independence Day, or think you're a traitor or something, then they're ridiculous. They don't know what they're talking about, because obviously they're being just they don't understand the value of other people's lives and the hardships that other people face here in America. So take out those ignorant people out of your life. And again, don't feel bad for celebrating or for not celebrating Independence Day, because I understand that things are not going too great here in America.
And I just wanted to end that. Thank you guys for watching, and hopefully you guys did learn as much as I did, as much as everyone here did. And we hope you guys enjoy this show, and we hope to see you next week.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.